Hey, what's going on YouTube? Nick and Shane here to talk about the Mandalorian book. The Book of Boba Fett episode 5 on Disney Plus here. Shane, how you doing tonight?
I'm good. I am reporting live from Disney World, so if I say anything poor about this episode, like snipers come down from the rooftops,
They're
uh,
gonna send stormtroopers over to your
yeah.
to your hotel. But yeah, so spoilers. Sorry for the background spoiler too, but I think IGN ruined that first for a lot of people on social media. So we are posting this video a day after the episode premieres, of course, to be fair. And we're gonna rant a bit. So be prepared. That's
We
all I'm
like
gonna say.
ranting.
Yeah, and I feel like the episodes do better when we rant. So buckle up. Buckle up, buckle in. So
Controversy sells.
yeah, exactly. And I felt like I was watching the pilot episode as you pointed out when we
Yeah,
were texting, the pilot episode for season 3 of The Mandalorian. Like
yeah.
and it honestly made me miss The Mandalorian and then just not give two shits about Boba Fett
And
whatsoever.
and that's the problem.
Yep.
I posted a video a while back about the Mandalorian finale, season two finale. Which
Yeah.
spoilers if anyone has not seen the finale of season two yet, where it was like you had this whole Mando show, and then Luke shows up, and you're like, okay, I don't give a shit about Mando anymore. Luke Skywalker's right there.
Right.
This is the same thing
Yep.
or it's like you have this whole Boba Fett show going on, and then you're like, "Oh, the Mandalorian's here. I don't give a shit about Boba Fett anymore." Like this is it totally took over the show, and it
It really
also
did.
was a great episode and showed that like why some of the Boba Fett stuff isn't working.
Yeah, it elaborated on Mando's story that has been told through 2 seasons, and it also exposed the problems with this Boba Fett show because in a 7-episode season, we're only getting 6 episodes that actually contains Boba Fett's actual story. This it's like having a chapter from literally a chapter from a different book inserted into this person's biography, and
Yeah.
it doesn't make much sense. Like, and again, I think this episode was written very well in of itself, surrounding Din Djarin's story.
Yeah, I
From
really enjoyed the episode.
same.
It's just a different show.
Yeah,
It's not the
entirely.
same show.
Just because we see Fennec show up at the end of this episode, the funny thing is Fennec showed up in the Mandalorian show. So
Yeah.
it's like Boba Fett is sort of like the outlier that inserts into the Mandalorian story. Like, if anything, Boba Fett is a guest in uh the cinematic universe of Din Djarin and the Mandalorian. Like,
Yeah.
it's and I think that's what we're questioning. Why does this show exist? Why does the Book of
Yes.
Boba Fett show actually exist?
Right. And going into this show, I was like, surely if they greenlit this, because we've already had a Mandalorian show, right?
Right,
We
right.
had the 2 seasons of a quote unquote Boba Fett show. Like everyone asked for a Boba Fett show for a long time. They gave us the Mandalorian, which was kind of like that, right?
Right.
And so now when they made this Boba Fett show, I was like, surely there has to be a very, very good reason why they would want to tell this story. And so maybe there, and that was what gave me optimism for the show because it's
Yeah.
like it has to be different enough from the Mandalorian, and there has to be like a spark of inspiration for them to even greenlight and proceed with this. And then there wasn't. Like we're 5 episodes in, and like it feels like the actual story of this show still isn't starting. Like we got the whole backstory with Boba Fett, and that was cool,
Yeah.
but it's not a new story. We're kind of like just filling in the gaps.
Yep.
And like the actual new story part was supposed to be this whole like crime lord, like, like maneuvering Godfather type thing. And we haven't gotten like any of that. He had like
Nope.
one meeting with that whole group of aliens and then they all agreed to help him.
Yeah.
And then we had this whole Mandalorian thing. So it's like, I guess we've got 2 more episodes left to flesh that out,
Yep.
but it just feels like we've been spinning our wheels for so long and then it's like, oh, by the way, it's just Mando again.
Yeah, and we knew, we said that he was going to be in this episode based on how it
Yeah,
ended. We heard like the tail end of the of Mando's theme, but the I think most of the time through this episode, I'm literally thinking, okay, Boba Fett's going to show up at this point,
yeah,
or Fennec's going to show up at this point. It's like at the end of the very end of the episode, Fennec shows up, and Mos Eisley, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, I guess next episode is when uh, Mando's going to go to Boba's palace, and Boba will fill him in on what's going on. But yeah, the same thing is, it's like he, there was so much greatness around this episode that it doesn't make this show feel like it matters to the point of like, well, Din Djarin acted more like Boba Fett than Boba Fett acted like Boba Fett, or was supposed to act like himself. Like in the very beginning, he's like, "I'm here to collect the bounty," or
right.
someone owes you payment. I was like, "Ooh, is this like an old payment that Boba?" Nope, someone
Nope.
completely different.
Just yeah.
And but still, he's walking in like a badass, and like this can go two ways. You could live. I can bring you in warm,
Warm or
or I could
cold.
bring
It's
you
like,
in
oh, he
cold.
said the thing.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh, we know that from a previous season because you were in it.
We clap because we know Star Wars.
Oh, you're so great there, Stewie Griffin. How you doing, guys? And like that was my issue, where he's acting like an actual like boss, and Boba Fett's not acting like a boss at all. And you could say, oh well, Boba, he doesn't follow orders anymore. Yeah, neither does Mando. He works for himself and just collects money because he's like, hey, you can't do this job because you won't kill this person or capture this person in carbonite. I will because I can, and I'm good at what I do. And I think the biggest thing too was like, as soon as I'm like, oh, he's gonna pull out a blaster. Nope, that's the dark saber, and I was like,
Yeah,
oh
that
shit.
was pretty cool.
Yeah, and again,
I also liked how like they established, and this is rare in at least new Star Wars. They established that like he's not good at it.
yeah,
Like he's swinging the saber around and he doesn't know how to use it. And at first I was like, that seems weird to like injure himself with it right away. It
yeah,
just felt weird, like to bring up that plot point. But then they established later that like he actually is a complete noob with this weapon, and
yeah. He
I
doesn't
thought that
get
was
it.
kind of neat. Like he has to learn to use it over time. It's like you actually see that, and everyone talks about like all the Mary Sue aspects of all the characters in New Star Wars, and
Yep.
we won't go into that. But it was nice to see
No, he won't.
a character like struggle to use a weapon and then like get better at it over time.
Yeah, I liked a lot of the storytelling and lore building from the armorer's
Hmm.
perspective. Because I know that was one of the things. Is she alive? Is she dead? Nope, she's just chilling, looking off into space.
Yeah, on
And
the Halo ring.
yeah, let's talk
I
about that
needed
real
the
quick. I was like, I know, like,
oh.
oh, like I'm like, wait, is that it? So Halo exists in Star Wars now. I'm like, I love the homages, right? And then
Yeah,
we also get a Terminator,
Terminator.
and
Yeah,
we get that T2 homage
yep.
as well, which was great, with the K2 droids and the probe droids. Like, oh man,
It's so much like that scene in Terminator.
spitting image, like.
That had to be an homage. Like, there's no way.
Yeah, I wonder if John Favreau was like, "Hey, I wonder if Dave, I wonder if we should like put in a like a T2 sort of reference here, and just uh,
It
you
could
know,
have been Bryce Dallas Howard too. I
or
don't
yeah,
know.
it could have been. Yeah, I mean, I don't think enough people gave her credit for how like nerdy she really is with all these like great old movies. The Halo part, I'm kind of curious about though.
Yeah.
Who was maybe John Favreau was a big Halo fan. I don't know, but
When I
I,
saw, like, I mean, I guarantee you 90% of the people who saw that scene were like, Halo,
yeah,
instantly.
exactly.
Yeah.
Like, oh my god, Mando's on the Halo ring. Like that's still attached. But yeah, like the idea of him finding where the guild was, right, or the what's the I can't think of the word, the covert. I think it's the name of it.
I
Um,
couldn't tell you.
anyway, like, uh, but she establishes that there's only three of them left, right, including herself, and there's like a Vizsla lineage Mando there, right? And I had in my notes, I'm like, he kind of seems a little jealous when she's sparring with Mando, and she's like, "You're fighting against the saber," you know, and I'm like, "Yeah, he's totally noobing it up." And then he's like, "Maybe it belongs to a different master, a different person." I'm like, "Oh, they're gonna fight," and then they do, and he Mando obviously wins at that point, but then I like how she questions both of them. Have you
Yeah.
ever taken off your helmet? And he doesn't respond like
He doesn't
for a
say a word.
long time. He's like, I have. and and again, that really sets up what we'll
Why
probably
didn't he
see.
just lie?
Yeah, I'm like,
Weird.
theoretically, he did
Like,
take it
they
off.
can't see you. Like, it's not like she can read your face and know that you're lying, right? You have a helmet on. You could just say no.
Yeah, like in my opinion, he should have just taken the whatever guilt he would have felt by it. Because the only person actually, the only two things or people that saw his face was Luke and Grogu. Everyone else was
And Bill
standing behind.
Burr, right?
Oh, Bill Burr, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Is that all the other Imperials are dead, so
Yeah.
they all blew up.
Yeah.
So they don't count. But so that's three people. You're right, because everyone else was behind him at that point too.
I think so.
So
Yeah.
I think again, I would have lied if our Mando, because now he's got to do this like crazy endeavor to go to the mines on Mandalore, which like he's like, aren't they destroyed? And she's like, this is the way. And I'm like, oh, you're fucked, bro. Like,
Yeah.
like, but again, I think that's where a lot of speculation was already getting set up
Right.
for this to take place to Mandalore. There's a lot of Mandalore talk.
Yeah.
The mythosaur, was mentioned, and again, I think it was great. There was a lot of great things in the writing of this episode, and I think uh, the directional purposes too from Bryce Dallas Howard. I
Yeah,
think
it
she
was
did a
great.
really great job this episode too.
And what's interesting is it's the same cinematographer that Robert Rodriguez had in his episodes.
Hmm.
And so it really goes to show the difference that directing with the same cinematographer can make.
Yep.
Because I thought this episode looked a lot more polished than Rodriguez's.
Very a lot of great shots. I think I mean it's a long episode, so I think it's the same length as episode 2, like a solid 51 minutes. Which I was glad to see. Like I've said before, I always look
Yeah,
to see the length because I'm like, what are we getting? How much
right.
storytelling are we going to get in this? Because we're coming down to the crunch time, right? So, um, but then he gets on like a passport, right? And he has to store all of his weapons, which was kind of a little humorous, right? He's emptying all his like um, whispering. I can't think of the name of him. That's terrible. But he's got all his gear out, right? And it
Oh,
just also
yes, yeah.
shows how like lethal he really is. Uh,
It reminded me so much of that scene in Lord of the Rings where they take off their weapons before they go into Rohan, like the
yes.
the hall, and
Oh,
like
you're
Aragorn's
right.
taking out like all the different knives and stuff.
Yeah. That's very true. It's like, oh, this one and this one. All right. Um, uh, that's also probably another uh, Pirates of the Caribbean when they're all taking out their swords, and I think it was in the second Pirates movie too. But Lord of the Rings might have done it first. Anyway, like of course I'm like, where are they going? Because this episode has gone in a different direction than I thought it would. Of
It's weird
course,
that he goes to Tatooine randomly, but I guess he got contacted by the woman about the ship, and that's why he
yeah,
went.
yeah. So I was like, why do you go to Tatooine? And then he sees he sees the
I
I
just
can't,
call her Perm Lady.
perm,
I don't
yeah.
know her name. I just know
um
she has a ridiculous perm.
yeah, she and again, like she was a great character that was established in the show. And like we were saying before, with the cyberpunk Power Rangers crew and their Vespas, like especially when they're trying to save Mando or when trying to save Fennec. Like they go to this mod parlor instead of someone who actually can deal with
Right.
something
And
that.
you talked about like, and we both did,
Yeah.
that we needed to see more of that like old like muscle car auto culture,
Yep.
not these like souped up things. And we got it. Like this is totally something that would happen on Tatooine. They take some like old Star Cruiser from prequel era and rebuild it with like a V8 in it.
Yeah, that was awesome. Like just to see something, again, prequel related and and again, it's this, Oma or not Michael a montage, right, of
Yeah,
them
got to make
like
another one.
yeah, and we have to make yeah, we made a montage. It would probably get like, striked or I don't know. I still might just upload it and see what the hell happens and just deal with it. But because it's hilarious. Shane did a great job on it. But this has that same sort of feel like
Yep,
they're
fixing up the car.
fixing it
Yeah,
up and is like it seems like it has a little bit too much throttle on. Just like, just give it a just crank it up, step on it, and then just revs it up. And it's sort of like
and he does the pod racing track
yes,
like from
yes,
episode one. At some point, it got a little too referential for
yeah,
me. I did like seeing like building up the Star Cruiser and stuff like that, and that was cute. But
yeah.
like when he takes it on like the same pod racing thing, and then he's spinning, and then he says "wizard," I was like, okay, we get it. It's a prequel reference.
All right, let's go left. Whoa! Like he's just going full tilt young Annie. Um,
So one thing about that scene, apparently the rebel pilot, who was not the one we saw in the prior season of
mhm.
Mando, the other pilot was apparently Luke's body double in that scene. I read that on Reddit. I'm not sure how accurate that is, but it certainly looked
Interesting.
like him.
Yeah, he did have a look to it that I'm like, why does he look so familiar? I couldn't put like a face like on him to say like, oh, he was in this movie or this episode. Um, but again, like it was pretty interesting that the older X-wing pilot was like, hey, your voice sounds familiar. You wouldn't happen to fly a Razor Crest, right? From Navarre. And Amanda's like, I think you got the wrong guy. So,
And
like,
just speeds off.
so the funny thing is he lied there,
But
but
he
he
didn't lie in
he didn't
the
lie to the.
prior thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess he just really cared more about you know uh the covert than he did the resistance or whatever. And I mean, I get that, but I think for the sake of what it leads to, and obviously like when they get back, when he lands, and that's when Fennec pops out because like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
there was some lady that was looking for you. And like that's how this gets connected, of course. And
Right.
there are a couple pretty cool Easter eggs. There's of course the BD droid,
Yeah.
which I thought was awesome. I'm like, please tell me like he is going to take that BD droid.
So
Uh,
the BB droid was only from the game, right? That, like it wasn't in
yes.
any other canon. Okay.
Nope. That's the first time we've seen that droid type was in Jedi Fallen Order with Cal
Yep.
Kestis. Yep.
Yep.
But again, that's really cool because it's again they're again building this sort of connected universe here from the game to a TV live action TV show.
Yep.
um and he was holding I think it was when he was talking with the Jawas, he was holding something. It was a long
Okay, that
rod.
was what they had in the trash compactor, right?
Yes, that
Okay,
was the
okay.
New
I
Hope trash
recognized it and I was
compactor.
like, surely that okay.
Yeah, I was like, can't be. And I sure enough it
Just
was.
insider
So
baseball.
yeah, like it's so funny. Like I again, like just these weird like little again, these little Easter eggs that can slip by us sometimes. But
Yeah, and I like those. I think what I like less of is when they don't focus on anything new, and they keep telling the same stories over and over again, or like keep throwing the same characters. But when you have like little like blink and you miss it moments like that, I think that's kind of cool. Like
Yeah.
nobody, like no normal person is going to be detracted. Like their viewing experience isn't going to be hindered by them putting that trash compactor object in it.
Right.
But for all the people who do enjoy Star Wars and have seen A New Hope a billion times, they're like, ah, there it is.
Yeah.
So I kind of enjoy that. As long as
Yeah.
it's subtle.
Yeah, and it really was too. Like they didn't make like a big deal like
Yeah, they
to like
didn't.
try and fit it in a way where like you have to understand it came from A New Hope and it was in the trash
Right.
compactor that
Right.
Luke and Han were trying to use, even though it just bent. um, yeah, and I'm just trying to think if there were any other Easter eggs. Oh, I know the one of which is pretty interesting because after Mando got the Beskar spear, the armor is like Beskar is used for armor, not for weapons. Again, pretty interesting. And she starts to melt it down, and he asks her, you know, what do you want to make? And he's like, make it for the foundlings. And then he has a certain foundling in mind. I'm like, oh yeah, he's going to try and give it to Grogu, even though she's like, you familiar your mission, and she makes the point of the way of the Jedi is different from our way. And then he sort of corrects her and he's like, or she goes, okay, well, what do you want to make? And he's like, just make some armor, which it looked like metal links, if
Yeah.
I caught that correctly. Like, I don't know if it's sort of this
Grogu's gonna have like
chain
some.
linked
Yeah.
vest. Again, it's going to be like the mithril that Bilbo
Yeah.
gives Frodo,
Yeah.
but it's like it's not mithril; it's made out of Beskar. I guarantee you that something's going to happen. Like and again, we might not see Grogu in the last two episodes, and again, I think that would really draw so much attention away from the
I
show
really
even
hope we
more.
don't.
Yeah, I don't think we will, especially if he's already there on Tatooine. I don't think we will. I think that's again just sort of setting something up for Mando season 3. So,
I
I
hope
mean,
so. Because he did say, like, before I help you, I gotta go visit Grogu. So I really, really hope, like, Grogu doesn't come out with, like, a lightsaber or some shit and
I'm,
save the day. I might
and
just
I'm telling you
quit
what,
Star Wars.
I'm telling you what, because we know for a fact, and those watching, if you don't know this, Dave Filoni is directing
Is doing
the
the
next
next one.
episode, and he co-wrote it with John Favreau, which means again something special with Filoni is probably going to happen. Again, I don't know if that's Jedi related. Who really knows? It's sort of like, what if Ahsoka pops up again, right? Like people are going to be talking about that in Mando more than Boba, and that's going to be like half the episode gone, and then he
See, the
returns
thing is, they
back.
already are. I feel like you
Oh
almost
yeah,
can't put like the genie back in the bottle now. Like
yeah,
you've basically hijacked this show with The Mandalorian. So it's like at this from this point onward, people care more about what happens with The Mandalorian than Boba Fett. And I think that's totally the opposite effect of what you should do with a show.
yeah.
Like
They're like, oh, this little green guy is coming back. Like, like that
nice.
they care more about him than they do about Boba Fett, which is really sad. And I think a lot of what's happened with Boba has sort of taken a lot away from who we all thought he was. And um, who knows? Maybe this seventh episode will be like super long, and maybe the next episode, the sixth episode, will be as well. But again, that's hope and speculation, and we could be very wrong on that front too. So I'm kind of I'm not going to say worried because I just
I'm very worried.
yeah, I was gonna say I'm concerned, but I yeah, maybe I am a little worried as far as what's going to happen in these last two episodes. Where the focal point's going to be, how distracting is it going to be with some of these other characters that are getting involved, and look, we might rant more, and I'm kind of okay with that because at the same time, like these are things that it's not to say I don't trust John Favreau or Dave Filoni to write a good story because I think they've written some good stuff with the 2 Mandalorian seasons, and then the Boba backstory, and in this episode, which is ultimately setting up a Mando season 3. And then I'm sure the Ahsoka show with Dave Filoni is going to be good. Potentially, again, I know that's speculation and hope, but um, I was going to say something corny about Rogue One and hope. Rebellions are built on hope. There it is. So, I'm awful. But yeah, I don't know. Again, I think this episode was great. What would
Yeah,
you rate this episode?
as a Boba Fett episode, like
As a
an
man,
NA, as
yeah,
as an hour of Star Wars, I really enjoyed it.
yeah,
As an hour of a show where we still don't know where it's going, I think it's like a huge step backwards for this
yeah,
show in particular. It feels so out of place, and it frankly better than what we've seen. And so it's like I guess that's what makes it even worse, is that like this episode was very good and better than anything that came before it in this show, which makes me think that this show is just not going to find its footing.
yeah. And I wonder if we'll even get something that follows the season around Boba Fett. And at that point, who's going to really want it, depending on how it actually ends. Again, the drawback of this, when once the season is over, and someone goes, "What was your favorite episode?" and they go, "Oh, episode 5," and you
Yeah,
go,
the
"Oh,
Mandalorian one.
that's what Mando was there, right? And the dark
Yeah.
saber and all that, and
Yep.
all these Easter eggs. Yeah, that was the best one. Yeah, it had nothing to do with the Boba Fett himself
Right.
at
And
all.
that's really the problem, is like it feels like they took this show and with this episode made it a side story rather than its own story. And
Hundred
so in
percent.
that case, you've totally flipped the formula, where Mando should have been like a small part in Boba's show, but now Mando is a bigger part. He has a full episode devoted to him. And so it just feels like this Boba backstory and stuff could have been like condensed and like thrown in. Like, let's say they did this backstory. Maybe they did a bottle episode on Boba Fett, and they had the
Yeah,
backstory in for Boba Fett, and then he shows up, and then we have that whole Mando episode, right? Because that episode was fairly short to begin with, and I think I remember reading that the script was even shorter, and the action sequences had to pad it out. So like that could have been Boba Fett's episode or something like that, and we continue on with the Mandalorian plot. But the fact that they made this a Boba Fett show and then just reverted right back into Mandalorian story is kind of concerning.
yeah. I almost think they could have done the same thing at what they've done with Boba Fett here. In the first episode of Mando season 3, where this fifth episode of Boba Fett solely relies on Boba Fett, and again, it's Fennec going to was Isley, finding I googled her name. It's Amy Sedaris, who plays
Perm lady.
Peli Moto.
Perm
So
lady. We're
Perm
just gonna
lady,
call her
yeah.
Perm lady.
Perm lady. The perm mechanic. So but Fennec comes back with Mando, and Bo was like, "Oh, where'd you find him?" He goes, "Oh, he was actually at Mos Eisley," and he says, "Yeah, Pelimoto owes me or is fixing a ship for me, or fixed a new ship for me, right? Whatever." And then we wonder, well, how did he get there?
Right.
We'll
And
learn
then
that in
yeah,
his story. This story is
correct.
about Boba Fett, so
Correct.
I feel like the actual storytelling, while good in this episode around Mando and everything that concerns Mando, was out of place. They should
Yeah.
have saved that for his season and focused more on Boba Fett and where this
It's
is
just
going.
it's so funny like watching that episode, and like all of the music and the title cards say like Book of Boba Fett, and, Boba Fett this and that. It's
Like,
like
even
you
the
could have replaced those with a Mandalorian title card and nobody would tell the difference at all.
yeah, I wonder if someone will probably like just do that anyway, and
They
then
should.
yeah, and it would be it would feel the same as Amanda's season. Not only that, but the title of this episode,
The
the
Return of the
Return of the
Mandalorian.
Mandalorian. I'm like, sounds a lot like
Spoiler
Return of the
alert.
Jedi, right?
Yeah.
Like, so we're we're saving our episode 7 title for the return of Robert Rodriguez,
God.
for his final episode finale.
Everyone's
Um,
favorite.
yeah, so we'll see how
We're
that
so
ends.
excited.
At this point, I'm wondering if they're actually just going to kill off Boba Fett.
They should, because he's less interesting than Mando at this point, and this episode clearly proved it. Like, I don't think they know what they want to do with Boba Fett, because, like,
Yeah,
as you said, like the Mandalorian is what Boba Fett, what people thought Boba Fett was,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And so
absolutely.
that's why I was like, okay, surely this has to be something different and good for it to exist. And I think the problem they ran into is they already made a Boba Fett show. It's called The Mandalorian, and now
Yeah,
they're trying to do it again, and they can't really figure it out. So they're just making The Mandalorian again.
yeah. It's like they made Mando into Boba Fett, and so they're like, but Boba Fett still exists. We're
Yes,
gonna
we got to do
make him
something with
live.
him. They just
Yeah,
let him die. Like, leave him in the Sarlacc pit. If you
yeah.
don't have a good story for him, leave him there.
Right, you're not gonna go the Legends route and follow the books in that course, so, you come up and that's a problem where they could have, because it's a different story that would have not included Mando whatsoever.
Yeah,
Um,
and I think that's what I disliked about Mando season 2 in general, was that it relied too much on other characters and other stories that were unrelated to the Mando story.
yeah,
And then this it has the same issue where this Boba Fett story is now too reliant on characters from other stories that we already know. Uh, I mean, just once, I would love to see like an original story where we just, even if we have a character that we already know, like take it in a direction that is unexpected and is unrelated to all these other stories that are happening, because that way it's like exciting and unexpected, and we can be surprised instead of just reverting back to the same old.
yeah, I think we could possibly even talk about this as a subject with future, Star Wars shows that are coming
Yeah,
out, like Kenobi, Ahsoka, Andor, right? So, and again, I think for this episode and for the show, I know a lot of people, when we first saw these pictures of the Mandalorian, people thought it was Boba Fett, or again, like you said, what Boba Fett should have been. Like, we're getting an actual Mandalorian show, and we would never guess or think to see Boba Fett on screen again, and this was just going to be it. And I think there was, again, this little misleading point too, ironically, from the episode that Robert Rodriguez directed in Mando season 2, where Boba Fett, um, he comes in with his fire spray gunship, right? And he is, he kind of helps Mando like fight off all those stormtroopers, and you're
yeah,
like, oh man, Boba Fett's kicking ass, like, right? And that's stuff we wanted to see. Like, he shoots his rocket, he shoots his little knee cannon, and
he's
he's
got the seismic charges.
right, yeah. And so I think there was so much hype around, like, yeah, Boba Fett is really back. uh but honestly, we see that he's kind of not, though. And
Yeah,
it's interesting to see, again, if he dies, if he dies, he dies.
yeah. It's, to me, this is the unfortunate side effect of bringing back Boba Fett as a character. Because if you're, I mean, as I just said, if you're gonna bring him out of the Sarlacc pit, you better have a good story to tell for him,
Yeah,
especially if he's getting his own show. If it's just like what we saw in Mando, where he shows up for a couple episodes and then goes away, that's fine. I don't particularly love like all bringing in all the characters and cameos and stuff, but it's better than making a show where you clearly don't have a story for it. And maybe in
yeah.
these 2 episodes it saves itself, but I mean, like, it's just not there yet, and we're 80% of the way through the season.
Yeah, and I know, like, last episode we were saying at the end how we enjoyed episode 4, and we hoped that episode, 5 and 6 would be better. In which case, yes, we were right. This episode was a step up. This episode was a step up than all 4 episodes
It was a step
combined.
sideways.
But also, like, you've heard of, like, it took a left turn. Like, no, this took, like, a complete 180,
It's in a
and then
different state.
hit light speed,
Yeah.
and then just, dipped out. Which I like actually too, when the X-Wing pilot was like, he didn't activate his hyperdrives. It was like, those weren't hyperdrives, son.
Yeah.
It was like,
Sublight engines. That's
yeah,
another little Easter egg.
yep,
Han Solo says it. Yeah.
yep. So again, a lot of great stuff in this episode. I think I would probably give it, as a separate Star Wars story. I'd probably give it like a solid 8.5. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
um,
It's a
as
good hour of television.
it is.
It just when you zoom out and look at what it means for Star Wars as a whole and the show as a whole, that's where it breaks down.
Yeah,
So
it's
it's a
like
very weird conundrum because I enjoyed watching it a lot, but I didn't like what it meant for the show.
yeah, it's like, cool. You're gonna color all these 7 boxes in with a red crayon, and then you get to the 5th one, and you're like, green. And you're like, that doesn't that
Wait a
doesn't
minute.
wait, what? Why did you do this? It doesn't match. This doesn't follow the what? Anyway, I think we could keep ranting on forever about this,
Yeah,
unfortunately and fortunately.
probably
But
cut it off.
yeah, so I think that'll wrap it up for there with us. What did you all think about this episode? Did you agree with what we've had to say? Did you also enjoy the episode, though? Leave your comments below, and we'll definitely chat back with you all on those comments. And then we'll see what happens in the 6th episode with Mr. Filoni co-writing and directing this episode. Hopefully it is good, to say the least. And maybe it keeps things on somewhat track that we're kind of on, but not on at the same time. And you'll catch us on the next week's episode. And until then, catch you guys later.